everyone, and welcome to Integrating Writing. In this video, I want to talk about some of the ways you can use writing in your class to increase comprehension and engagement. But I also want you to be able to look at the Common Core standards in writing and see how they can help you serve your goals, no matter what your content area. So by the end of the video, I'm hoping that you'll be able to design a writing assignment that serves your content goals and integrate a Common Core state standard in writing that serves your purposes. But before we do that, I just wanted to talk writing quickly, because if you're not an English language arts teacher, you're really going to be using writing as a tool for learning. You're not going to be teaching kids to write the argumentative essay. You're not going to be teaching them to write blogs or analyze Shakespeare. What you want to use writing for is so students can think about the complex relationships in the topic you're teaching, because writing helps us learn. So hopefully you'll be using what's called expressive writing, which is to help you think. The emphasis is on content, and it's informal and often ungraded. Think of this as the shoes that you wear when you run up the canyon, just because it's your daily practice of becoming a healthier and hopefully a happier person. You don't wear those shoes to dinner. Think about learning to write as the public writing. When you've become a happy, healthier you put on your special clothes and you go out to dinner or when you're singing in the opera or whatever you're doing, then you dress up for it because it's for other people. It's a performance for other people. Another way that you can think about it is this expressive writing is informal. It's really for yourself. It's to ask, like, what do I believe? What do I know? Where this learning to write, this more polished writing, is it takes disciplinary forms, like lab reports or newspaper articles, but it's formal. It's for other people. And so it's not that writing is either informal or formal or expressive or polished, but there's usually it's along a continuum. And so if you don't want to grade grammar, which you shouldn't have to if you're math or social studies or PE, then give expressive writing assignments that just help students think about relationships. Because one of the great things about writing is you can't write and not think. That's a quote from Jim Burke. And so whenever you have students sit down and you're about to do some direct instruction, or you want them to watch for something in a video, absolutely have them pull out a science notebook or a math journal or whatever you want to call that little notebook, and say, I want you to look for the following things. I want you to write something first, because if you don't ask them to take notes, they will listen passively. It will go in one ear and out the other, and you will have wasted 45 minutes. But as soon as you ask for writing, you ask them to take notes, you tell them that you're going to ask them to agree or disagree with the premise by the end of the video, you're going to have them paying attention in an all new way. So there's a few writing to learn forms. It can be as simple as taking notes. It can be graphing. It can be diagramming. Those are powerful because drawing things helps us look at what the relationships are. You can have them write questions before they read. You can have them predict. You can have them rank things. One of my favorite things to do is say, like, rate yourself as a learner on a scale of 1 to 5. Are you really powerfully good at it? It gets students introspecting. So writing is a great way to start a class because you're already asking for focus. They have lives outside of their classes. I know, hard to believe. Your class is often the last thing on their mind. And so to ask them to pull out a notebook that you may keep in your room and say, okay, today, before we begin, I want you to think about this question. You're not going to grade that. You just want to get the gears moving. You want them to get on the same page. Another great way that writing works is that you can do pre and post assessment, because what we know assessment is, it's making inferences about what students know and can do. And so if you simply ask, like, what do you already know about osmosis? If they know nothing, then, well, golden opportunity. But if they do, you can skip it. So it helps you know what's in a kid's head, because basically we can't just open up people's brains and look inside and see what they know. We have to make inferences about that. And so writing helps us see what that is. For instance, if you look at this third grade paper here, and I just ask, what do you know about percent? If I see this child's paper, I'm like, this kid's doing okay. There's maybe a little bit of misconception, but mostly this kid knows percents. I can also have in PE or health a notebook in which students keep, even if they're on a team, like how did our teamwork work? How did our strategies work? If you pause this video, you can see a lot of different kinds of prompts. You can ask students to help them think about their level of physical fitness, their predisposition for teamwork, what sports they like and why. So writing helps them, whoops, I'm going to skip by here. Writing helps students answer the so what of your content area. It makes them pause and apply it to their lives. So in your book, William Strong introduces the RAFT format. And when I put the C in front of it, you're just adding the context. But really, what you're asking students to do is take a role, have that whoever is in that role make a case to an audience in a certain format on a certain topic. And the reason that you do that is it's not just more playful, but it helps students do better, more specific writing. And he's got lots of good content examples in there, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it right now, but you're going to be creating a RAFT assignment for a specific topic in your area that helps you see how well students understand something. Now, before you just go hauling off and making a writing assignment, however, I think it's really important to know what your goals are. Like why do you want them to be doing that particular writing assignment? Because there's nothing that's more maddening than to be doing some sort of assignment in school and not have a freaking clue why you are doing it. For instance, in this class, I don't give you a single assignment that doesn't move you toward being able to integrate literacy in your classes. Nothing. If I do, I apologize. It should not be in there. Everything should be purposeful. So think about your goals first. Now, if you've been in my class before, you might recognize this upside down triangle, but what you assign really depends on, first of all, your big goals. Now, the reason why I have an upside down triangle is because your goals are really big and broad, and they move towards specific daily things, but everything should line up. So your big goals and purposes, you get to decide that. So if I just want students to be more compassionate human beings by reading diverse texts of other human beings' struggles, that is okay. If I want students to be globally minded, if I want students to be lifelong learners, if I want students to love reading, if I want them to be, to love exercise and movement, I get to decide that. And the reason why I determine that first is so that I don't get derailed by standards and what everybody else wants me to teach. Understandings are big. Relationships are concepts. I'll show you examples of those. Standards are published things. You also get a look at those. And then finally, outcomes and assessments. That's what you measure at the end of a day, at the end of a unit. Let me show you how this kind of works in the real world. Say that my goal in life is to be super hot. Well, that could mean a lot of things, right? One of the things that's going to help me, an understanding that is going to help me get super hot, is the relationship between the desired physical results I want and different kinds of exercise, because they have different effects. And so that's a relationship I really want to understand if I want to be super hot. I'm going to need to define what that is, right? Does it mean like being a super bodybuilder? Or does it mean just being thin? Like those are really different things. Now notice I put in a PE standard here just for fun to see how that fits in with this, how everything should line up. And in this that I would need to demonstrate target zones of health-related fitness components through participation in individual group sports. And then finally, the outcome could be a written assignment. I can explain how and why I chose blank swimming, insert football to serve my professional fitness goals. So that's kind of one example of how it fits together. And in a minute, I'm going to show you how you integrate the Common Core in this. So what standards are relevant? We're going to move to that standards area. So content standards, they are all subject areas but English, language, arts, and math. Because when we talk Common Core, those are the only two subjects. Whenever you see whenever you see the initials CCSS, that means Common Core State Standards, which is kind of funny because they're actually national standards, whatever. Basically, those are in English, language, arts, math, and literacy across the curriculum. So no matter what area you're in, you get to be familiar with the literacy goals. It kind of may make you chafe a little, but but basically those skills, those literacy skills, help you really across the domain. So if you look at this, this is a Common Core roadmap. Basically, the literacy standards are in 4 areas: reading, writing, speaking, and listening. Now we're going to do reading Common Core standards on your final project, because you're going to introduce a text and be able to show how it helps foster a reading standard. You're not going to do that yet. Instead, for this module, you're just going to look at the standards in writing and how they can help you teach a particular concept. I'm going to come back to this slide later, but in the meantime, let's just take a look at where the standards are and how to find them. So, if you're wondering how to find your content standard, because you're not math and you're not English language arts, you can always go to your state's Department of Education. I'm going to use South Dakota here because most of you are going to be looking at South Dakota standards, but look at any state you like. It is totally up to you. Scroll down to what your content area is: career and technical education, English language arts, that should go right to the core, health, mathematics, physical education, science. So you basically find your standards and just look them over. Like, what are the topics that you teach? If you haven't done that yet, it's really super good practice. Once you've kind of got a sense of what you teach in your own subject area, what those standards are, come on over to the Common Core. Yeah, it's the dark side. This is what their homepage looks like. If you come to this page, you can go to read the standards, and what you're going to click on is English language arts literacy standards, because it's those literacy standards that go across the curriculum. So as much as you hate clicking on this, do it anyway. You're going to come to a page that looks like this. Now, this kindergarten grade 12 business right here up at the top, this is a lot of English teachery stuff right now. You can definitely pick the speaking and listening. That's standards if you want to be able to see what students should be doing when they're collaborating or public speaking. But what you really want to focus on is this area. If your content area is history, social science, science or technical subjects, this is the area we're looking at. And even more specifically, we're looking at this writing one. Now, if you use the writing standards up here, like no one will be harmed. There's just more of them there because that's intended for English teachers. But if you're social studies or science, click this writing for this particular model, and you'll see that they are organized for grades 6 through 12, and they just vary in sophistication. Basically, the writing types are exactly the same, but they vary in sophistication from grade 6 to 12. So say you click on grade 6, what you're going to see is that they're going to highlight two main kinds of writing. I'm going to blow this up a little bit. The first one is writing arguments. And writing arguments is basically I'm choosing a side of something, I'm looking for evidence, and I'm going to present my case. That's what an argument is. And arguments can take different forms. Now notice that you have the big, main idea, kind of writing, and then you have these subtopics. Well, what are the parts of an argument? Okay, an introduction, the support, the words and phrases. So you can, when you design your writing assignment, you can just use this big one, write arguments focused on discipline-specific content. If you'd rather do this smaller one, like introduce a claim, fine. It doesn't matter to me whether you pick the big broad one or one of the smaller like subcategories, doesn't matter. So notice that writing arguments is the first one, and writing informational text is the next one. So an informational text shouldn't be picking a side, rather it's just explaining how things work, right? And you can either use the broad big category, or you can use, the smaller subgroup, like introduce a topic. The one that is sort of embedded down here in the bottom, like you can also use these more broad goals down here: produce clear and coherent writing with purpose and audience, use technology, conduct short research projects. Like any of these things are useful. So just take a peek through those. Those run throughout the content areas. Now here's something I'm going to add. If you go to the English language arts ones, they get one more that you don't. And that is, let's just go to grade 6, narrative. And you are welcome to steal this off the English ones. You got arguments, you got information, but English teachers also get write narratives, which are stories. Now, if it helps you in a science class to have students write a story, like from the point of view of like a sugar molecule being metabolized, by all means, lift this one out of the English teacher repertoire. I think that it's kind of sad that narratives got plucked out of the other literacy stuff. So that's where you find this stuff. If you are not English language arts, just take a look under this big category right here. Okay, let's go back to the PowerPoint and finish up. Okay, so the way that this works, if you want to see how the different genres work out, say that you were going to use the RAFT format. Basically, if grandma, I spelled explanation wrong, don't tell anyone. If grandma's audience is Little Red Riding Hood and she's going to give an informational explanation on the nature of wolves, that's an informational text. If the wolf is going to get it right to a defense attorney or call that defense attorney and explain why he is innocent, that's argument. If Little Red wants to write to other young women about her brush with death, that's narrative. That's the difference between those three different kinds of writing. And you can use any of them in any content area, depending on your purposes. So here's one more thing that's going to hopefully not confuse you too much. When you look at the Black Hills State University School of Education lesson plan format, you're going to see target standards and supporting standards. Whenever you pick a target standard, make sure it's in the content area you want to teach, because that's your target, that's your goal, that's your destination. The supporting standard just helps you get there. So if your target standard is you really want students to understand the effects of globalization, make your supporting standard maybe a writing goal, that students write an informative text explaining how the African colonization led to the slaughter in Rwanda. Now, that's using a writing standard as a way of getting to your target standard. So it's not that you're teaching kids how to write. You're using writing as a way of helping students understand complex relationships. Okay, so here again is the two sites, the Department of Education and the core standards. But here's what they look like in action. So if you're thinking about an example in geography, see, what I really want is students to become globally minded. Well, one big relationship might be that students understand the relationship between European imperialism and manifest destiny. Now, that would be so impressive if students had that understanding of how the European ideas got imported to America and how they influenced each other. And this could be a social studies standard too, by the way. Now notice that the standard is a content standard. Students are able to identify how human migration impacts politics, the environment, and regions. Now notice that this Common Core literacy standard, it says WHST. That means writing, history, science, technical subjects. W means writing. If you don't have a W in that standard, it won't be a writing standard. Notice I have picked write arguments focused on discipline-specific content. Well, what does that look like in an actual assignment? After reading The White Man's Burden, students write a letter to Kipling from the point of view of a Filipino farmer. I hope that helps you see how everything is supposed to line up. This is, like, you don't have to write a lot when you design these assignments. They're short, but there's a lot of cognitive work happening. So if you have questions as you go, by all means, shoot me some ideas. I'm happy to help you. Here's another example. Here's one in art. Maybe my big goal is I just want students to appreciate art. One of the big understandings I may want them to have is that they understand that art is a subjective process, an interpretive process. And here's my art standard. Evaluate works of arts in terms of artistic concepts, ideas, or intentions. Okay, so that's my content standard. Now notice that my writing this is the red one, my writing, history, science, and technical subjects use precise language and domain-specific vocabulary to inform about a topic. Okay, so now my writing assignment can be, imagine that you're in Paris in 1872 and Saint-Monet's impression, so le Vent. Write a postcard back home with your impression of the painting. So, the point is that you're using the Common Core standard to help you achieve that standard in your content area. So if you want students to really be able to evaluate works of art using the kind of language, it pairs really well with using informative writing. So with a deep breath, I'm about to turn you loose to design a writing assignment for this module. So here's just a few things to keep in mind. Effective writing assignments serve specific goals. They're not a waste of time. They're not a punishment. Good writing assignments elicit specific, immediate responses. Like, they're not vague. Like, tell students, like, if you ask students to write about freedom, that's so hard. Like, what do you want? Like, if you asked me to do that, I would think there was something up your sleeve, because that's really vague. And so what you're going to get from me is vague writing. Good writing assignments use specific language, like analyze, compare, contrast, like narrate, explain, and list. And say a list. There's a list in your book, William Strong's book, on page 85-86 that talks about the characteristics of really good writing assignments. So take a look at that and really think, if you were a student in your own class, what is a way that you could have students step into your content area in a playful and imaginative way that helps them really understand a relationship that you would like them to know? With that, I will set you free. I was going to talk about rubrics, but I think that's a whole new thing. So I'm going to leave that to another video. Wish you well and ask you to keep in touch as you're making your designs this week. I look forward to your thinking.